Do you really want to know what sin is? Sin is actually a separative act, not the result of the act of separation, but the act of separation in and of itself. If the open hand represents God, represents the divine, represents unconditional love, what we are doing is we're living like a clenched fist. We're doing an act of separation. And that separation, that act, is felt as tension, as stress, as a pulling away from whatever activity we are doing. We are avoiding being intimate with every single thing that we do. People don't like the word intimate nowadays. They want to be intimate with their intimate partner or wife or spouse, intimate with their children. But generally speaking, people don't want to be intimate. When we're not doing that tension, we are inherently, automatically intimate with whatever we're doing. There's no separation. We're not doing the act of separation, which is sin. We all know what it's like when you smell a flower, or when you're in the country, where you're eating a delicious cake. In those moments, you are intimate with whatever it is you're doing. Sin is this act of separation. It's known as, in the esoteric teachings, missing the mark. And to miss the mark is sin, is that activity of separation. So consider what you're doing right now. Are you there? Are you here right now? Or are you avoiding? Have you got loads of stuff going on in your head? Do you feel as if you want to move away from wherever you are right now? I'm not suggesting anything alien, because intimacy is our natural, God-like disposition. To be intimate at all times is to be living as God. Not as God intends, but as God. The natural, innate, inherent disposition of the body-mind is one of intimacy, of love bliss, of already happiness. Consider that word already. In the Bible, it says, become like children, not childish. Majority of adults are very childish. But become that disposition that a child is when a child is allowed to be a child. The child's disposition is one of utter freedom, utter delight, utter joy with the conditions of life. Everything's fresh. But us adults, we become so familiar with everything. Only someone said yesterday, I'm so familiar with this, I don't notice that it's there. Familiarity breeds contempt, which is very true. So there is a lot of results from this doing, this activity. of what I call the self-contraction. It's a tension that takes us away. And that tension breeds doubt, boredom, discomfort, unhappiness, excitement even. It breeds seeking. It breeds wanting to get away from this moment. It breeds control. It breeds fear. It breeds everything that we call being human. To be divine, not divine-like, is to live those fruits that are God. The fruit of love, the fruit of patience, the fruit of tolerance, the fruit of compassion. These are the fruits of the Spirit. From this disposition, we're creating a personality. We're creating a me against a you. Do you understand? The natural disposition of the body-mind, which isn't yours, this isn't mine, from this disposition. But from this disposition, it's me against you, you against me. I know better. We all have points of view. My point of view must be heard. My point of view must dominate yours. There's no point of view when we say water is wet. That's not a point of view. When we say water has the formula H2O, that's not a point of view. When we say sugar is sweet, that is not a point of view. These are facts. Well, this is also a fact. Find it out, that we are doing sin. We are doing separation from God. We are living like a clenched fist, which is so immature. The clenched fist disposition is always an immature disposition. That's what it is. Everyone is at war with one another from this disposition. From this disposition, there can only be peace. There can only be intimacy. There can only be embracement. Because that's the natural, innate, inherent disposition of what God is. Society controls. You are part of society. You do very much what society wants you to do. I was listening to Galileo, the story of his life. We've learnt a lot from him. But at the time, he was not accepted. He was what was called practicing heresy. The Pope, meant to be the greatest one of the greatest religious leaders on earth, almost sentenced him to burn at the stake. He suffered interrogation until he admitted that his views that the earth revolved around the sun was wrong. There's so many people that have been misunderstood by society and religion, I included. As a child, I would say to my mother, I don't feel I belong here. She didn't understand. She thought I meant I didn't feel I belonged to the family. And her response was, that's your fault. The God state, the God disposition, is unreasonably happy, full of life. The majority of adults are walking dead. They're mechanical. following routines and regimes and don't want to put a foot wrong and don't want to say the wrong word. From this disposition, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But yes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Who else was murdered? Jesus was murdered. Socrates was murdered. He had to drink poison because of his views. Society didn't like what he was doing. They said he was corrupting the youth. Jesus wasn't allowed to say, I am the Son of God. Because what he's basically saying is, I am God. That is not accepted in society. For over 2,000 years, we've been hearing the same ridiculous nonsense that God is creator up in heaven. No, that's balls. God is here on earth now as every human being. Every one of us is God. God creates and destructs. That's what these fingers do. They create and destruct. This voice is lived by God. Consider this. What grows your nails? What replaces your skin every, 6 months or so? What grows your hair? What grows you? It's God. God is growing us. That life energy, that force, that power. We're not allowed to be only already happy in society. We're looked upon as crazy. Ecstatics are crazy from the point of view of society. You're only allowed to be happy if you are apparently made happy by being given a tick, by being given a gold star, by enjoying a joke. No. Find out that this tension, this self-contraction is creating illusionment, and be disillusioned by it. I've only ever wanted to live a life of love. From a very young child, I didn't know what that meant. I said, I did not want to follow you, Jesus, I said as a young Christian. I said, I want to be more like you. Where did those thoughts come from? That's heresy to society. You can't become like Jesus. You're not allowed to be Jesus. The way Jesus is portrayed is pathetic. Dead on a cross. A wimp. No, Jesus was strong. He would have a huge personality. He was out there speaking the truth and disrupting the norms of society. The church is nothing but an army. The generals are the bishops. It's just different ranks. Majority of these people in society don't know what it's like digging the earth, being with the earth, being normal, being ordinary. In society, you're encouraged to become superior to everybody else. It's terrible the way we live. The greed, the unhappiness. The me against you. It's all about me, 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 me against you, 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 you. Feel this tension. Feel this contraction. And what's the answer? To fall in love. Fall in love. Fall out of love with the results of this. Oh, poor me. Oh, poor me. Headaches are due to this activity of tension on the whole. There's a lot of bodily ailments that are due to this self-contraction. I go on the bus. The people on there are no connection. Avoiding relationship. There's no relationship. Everyone's fearful of everyone else. I go to the gym. They love me there. I'm full of happiness and joy when that's what I am, generally, always. I never ever have an unhappy day. I might have an unhappy moment due to this, and I notice it and I release it by turning away from it. That's what it meant when Lot's wife turned to Sot, because she turned back. She looked at her history. She looked at her previous life, and she turned to stone. Every time we keep reflecting on ourselves like narcissists, reflecting on our own image, we are creating an unhappy destiny. There are very few people like myself who simply want to live full-time happiness, full-time in love. And to do that, you've got to stand alone. You've got to break away from the stranglehold of society. Of course, I pay my bills and I do what everyone else does. One has to do, but that's how it is. But I do not need you to make me happy. But you are wanting to be made happy. All the time you are wanting to be made happy, even when you drink a cup of tea, even when you go out and you want someone to say good morning to you. There's always this wanting to be made happy because of this tension. If you weren't doing the tension, if you weren't doing that act of sin, then you would be already happy. I say you, it's not you. This is what creates a you. I'm talking about the natural disposition of the body-mind, which is full of energy and life. There's no highs and lows. There's a peaceful stability. Only when you are willing to stand alone and take responsibility for your thoughts and your feelings will you ever realize who you truly are. I'm one of those fortunate, blessed people that understood this from an early age. I don't belong to anyone. I don't belong to anything. I simply live and I serve and give and do all whatever I can do, whatever people would like me to do. I live in the world, but I'm not of the world. I'm not. We're all going to die. Do you want to end up on your deathbed not really having been happy and in love? There are sometimes flowers that never blossom. They remain a bud and they die due to whatever reason. Lack of sunshine maybe, or lack of water. Have you blossomed? Are you blossoming? Not as anything in particular, but we are born to create. The body-mind is a vehicle of expression and creativity. Years ago, I don't do it often now, thank goodness, but years ago I punished myself because I was different. I got depressed because I was different or felt different. I didn't fit in. So, it's your choice. You're going to continue doing this, or you're going to be distracted from it. Be distracted and love instead, and simply be happy. Look around and be grateful for all that you have or that you enjoy, because we don't have anything. The plants over there aren't mine, the pictures aren't mine. They're here to be embraced. They're part of creation. The fingers of someone created them. And no doubt God was the open hand disposition. But a lot of composers and poets and creative people have created their work from the suffering disposition. They go, ooh. So many composers, Schubert, Beethoven. Brahms on the whole was quite a happy person, but arrogant. Schumann, Tolstoy, Wordsworth, Van Gogh. These people all suffered. Joan of Arc, burnt to the stake, at the stake. They were what's called renegades. They weren't born to be a renegade. They were simply a renegade, if you see what I mean. They didn't decide to be a renegade. They just saw things differently. As I said earlier on, Galileo saw controversial explanations of the workings of the world and the universe. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell anybody what to do. It's your choice. But I can tell you what you are doing that's preventing you from being already happy and in love and intimate. I'm your friend. That's why I'm telling you all of this. I had a teacher. I still have a teacher. Adidal Samraj. I live my life in relationship with him because I see him to be the greatest enlightened person that has ever walked the earth. That may be a point of view. That doesn't matter. I'm not trying to sell him to anyone. I'm just stating a fact. Just as water is wet this is what everyone's doing. If that represents God and that is sin, we do not need to be doing that. We can open up. So whatever it takes for you to open up, do it. And then stay there. Don't close down. Don't close God down. God, the Spirit, the great force, wants to live you. What's the purpose of a hose pipe? For water to pass through in order to water the plants. That sometimes a kink prevents water from flowing through. The tap's on, but there's a kink in the hose pipe. You don't go off and buy a new hose pipe. You don't need to go and check the water. You see the kink. And it's that kink that has to be unkinked. And that's what we're doing. This has to be unfilled. Like the shutter in a camera. Very few adults want to take on a very responsible and disciplined life. Most adults are going around like headless chickens. As long as they are made happy, they're okay. As long as they've got what they want, they're okay. They're consoled. They're stimulated. But to blossom is a different matter altogether. This is not what I'm advocating here, a point of view. It's an actuality. Just as water is wet, the self-contraction is something everyone is doing. Tension, stress, avoidance. It's what everyone is doing. That's a dis-ease. That's the greatest disease of mankind. And very few people have realized that that activity of the self-contraction is not necessary. It's a heart matter. Be moved by the heart, not by the mind. Live a life of love, joy, happiness, intimacy. Be in that place at all times. Thank you for listening.